Good morning. Thank you for joining us for the Tuesday, July 26, 2022 Municipal Airport Authority City of Fargo meeting. Start off by approval of the minutes of the regular meeting from July 12th.
Let's see if they can hear us.
Oh,
for sure.
Yep. Let's do a sound check for everybody on.
Chief Bush is on. Can you hear us, Chief?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
All right. Amanda? All right. We're good.
Okay. If you can't or something, you have technical difficulty, please chime in when you can and let us know. Thank you. We'll go back to approval of the minutes of July 12th. Motion?
I so move.
Second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Any more conversation? None. Call the roll.
Cosgrove?
Aye.
Heckman?
Aye.
Eric Lind, are you on the phone? Eric Lind? Jim Capitan? Okay, hang on.
Aye. Move on to approve airport vouchers totaling $175,235.39. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I second.
Motion and a second. Any conversation, communication? None. Roll call.
Cosgrove?
Aye.
Heckman?
Aye.
Hang on.
Aye. Moving on to number 3, individual vouchers. TL Stroll, $1,635.78. Sun Electric, $22,140. TF Powers, $28,240.20. TF Powers again, $147,910.95. Mead and Hunt, $2368.79. Sun Electric, $16,200. Wesley Schoen for $800. Mead and Hunt for $5,803.60. Can I get a motion on the individual vouchers?
I so move.
Second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions? None? Roll call.
Cosgrove?
Aye.
Heckman?
Aye.
Hang on.
Aye. Moving on to number 4, Brady Marks and Associates introduction.
All right, so we had a kickoff meeting with Brady Martz and Associates last week, along with Jamie Pasnati from Balance Tax and Accounting, Joan and myself. And Bryce Carl is on here from the Fargo office, and I believe Amanda Scanson is up from the Grand Forks office. So I guess if Bryce or Amanda, if you want to introduce yourself, maybe Amanda go first, and how we're going to accomplish this.
Hi, Sean. This is Brian Upsall.
Brian.
I'll actually start us off.
Okay, there's Brian. Okay.
Morning, everybody. Yeah, I'm sure I'm probably bumped off the screen here. So just a quick introduction. My name is Brian Upsall. I'm a shareholder at Brady Martz and Associates. Been around for about 19 years now. Lots and lots of government experience doing audits, including single audits. So I'm out of the Grand Forks office. Amanda Scanson is also out of the Grand Forks office, and as you mentioned, Sean, Bryce is out of the Fargo office. I guess I'll let them introduce themselves and then maybe circle back to me just to give you kind of heads up as far as where we're at so far.
I'm Amanda Scanson. So I, like Brian said, work out of the Grand Forks office. I'm a senior manager in the audit department, and I also only do government. So cities, schools, and different types of governments is all I do. So.
Yeah, I'm Bryce Carl out of the Fargo office, manager with Brady Martz, been with us about 5.5 years around there, and yeah, primary focus is with governmental entities, and again, kind of what Brian and Amanda alluded to, a lot of different single audit and working with federal programs, kind of a wide variety of clients in the area.
Any questions?
So, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just asking if there are any questions from the board members to begin with.
Will we have one specific person that we're working with, or will it be a group?
It'll be a group, but the primary contact will be Bryce. He'll be kind of the boots on the ground, and so he'll be the one on site managing the team. Amanda and myself will always also be around as part of the audit process, especially the first year, to ensure that we get kind of all of our ducks in a row and get everything set up properly. And a lot of our experience with other airport authorities is from myself and Amanda, so we want to make sure we're available to help and answer questions that the staff might have at the airport. just very briefly, as part of our audit process, we do risk assessment procedures, which includes contacting someone, probably the board or the chairman, and just asking questions regarding fraud, the audit process itself, etc. So that's kind of an opportunity for any of the board members to speak up and ask questions or indicate some things that they might have concerns over. The other thing I guess I'll point out is as part of the audit process, and you've gone through this before as part of the city's audit, but there is a risk assessment process that we go through to ensure that your financial statements are in accordance with GAAP. The other process that we go through is looking at your internal controls. And as part of that process on a first-year audit like this, where it's kind of broken out a little bit, there might be more internal control type suggestions that we come up with that should be looked at as best practices to ensure that you have proper separation of duties, sign-offs, etc. So I just kind of want to give a heads up that that's also part of our audit process. So just want to kind of point that out and say hi, and if there's any questions at this point, we'd be happy to answer them.
I have none. Appreciate you being on board and helping us through this process.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
You bet.
Before we move on to number 5, I had asked Officer Bear to come in. It is his last day, I believe, on the force, unless they keep drag him back for some reason.
I work tomorrow, but I just turn in my uniform and some paperwork. I don't actually come out here.
All right. Well, we appreciate your decades of service with the City of Fargo and helping the airport and the authority do your job. That it is necessary, and thank you for keeping me out of trouble downtown Fargo. Always, that was greatly appreciated. How many years?
32 and a half.
Wow. Well, it is greatly appreciated.
Thank you. You bet.
Awesome. Thanks. All right. Have a good day.
You bet. All right, let's move on to number 5, receive May 2022 financials.
Okay. They were provided to you a few weeks ago in between meetings, so I don't know if you have any questions on what was sent out. Hopefully June will be wrapped up here fairly soon, and if you have any questions, let us know.
John, any questions?
Just a comment. 30 days is reasonable to get out financials. 45 more, don't mind it, hey, let's stand up.
Yeah. Is there, so as we get information, and many times it's coming in after the fact from the airlines, and so there's always a bit of a delay. For the most part, is that the issue?
Yeah, and downloading the credit card statements to get those to match up, there's a lag in that, so we want it to be as accurate as possible, but the credit card part too overlaps like half a month in there, but we'll do better. We'll see if we can get it out quicker.
Yeah, just comment to expectations 30 days after close.
Good. Anything else from the board? None? Let's move on to number 6, receive proposal for renovating the planting beds west side.
This deals with the plantings on each side of the flagpoles out front, kind of where you see the trees there. They were in for a few years, and they didn't make it through the winter. So the Park District actually came out and removed all of the plantings. So we had Jim Hansen, who's our landscape design contact, to go out and get a couple of bids, one from Pro Landscaping and one from S&S. He provided an update dated July 25th that should be on your table there, that if we were to proceed with S&S without the 1-year warranty, their cost would be $25,487. Pro Landscaping is at $26,041 with no maintenance or warranty provided. Jim is recommending S&S with a 1-year maintenance included for $30,322, and they can get it completed within 30 days. So,
good. Any questions for Sean on it? If none, I'd like a motion for the recommended.
I just had one question. So you said that the park board takes care of everything? Or
they do the flowers, and they have help to assist with the maintenance of the shrubbery.
Okay.
So once these are in after the first year, then they will help with pruning, trimming, and things of that nature. It's kind of a cooperative thing that goes back to 1985, I guess.
So we play for the initial planting,
Correct.
and then they will maintain it.
Correct.
I understand. Okay.
Can I get a motion to accept the consultant's recommendation on a bid?
I so move.
A second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any other questions, concerns? None? Call for the vote.
Cosgrove?
Aye.
Ekman?
Aye.
Engen?
Aye. All right. Moving on to number 7, received communication from Southeast Cass Water Division.
You may have already seen this. We had a mass mailing. I think we received 30-some notices because we have so many different parcels. But this is just for your information that they are going through a reassessment of benefits for the drains, and then going to combine how they classify the drains in this hearing that's upcoming on August 17th. So I don't know if you have any questions on it, but we are major benefactors of the drainage system that Southeast Cass has around the airport. So it's for your information.
Appreciate it. Let's move on to number 8, received report from SP Plus.
Okay, Gregory Pearson and Brad McAllister on board. This was just provided yesterday, and they conducted some surveys here, June 29th and June 30th. And I guess, Gregory, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Board. Thank you for having us today. Brad, you want to get started?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it. Appreciate all your attention today, everyone. As you know, we typically perform these survey studies of your departing passengers for a period of 2 days, twice a year. This is the second one we've done in the post-COVID era, and I believe the 7th study we've done in total over the years. I just wanted to point out that we asked the typical 3 questions that you are all familiar with us asking the passengers. How did you arrive at the airport today? Did you, really try to determine, of the percentage of departing passengers that we surveyed, how many are actually parking on site versus taking a rental car or a TNC or getting dropped off by a friend or family member. We also, again, asked if the traveler was traveling for business or leisure, or and what state and city they were coming from as well. Every once in a while, we do add a 4th question. In the past, it's been related to the seasonal shuttle service. This year, because of the discussions around the potential for a garage there at Fargo Airport, we did ask passengers, if they were willing to pay a higher rate for a garage parking space, covered parking space in the short-term lot there. I think we asked if they were willing to pay up to $20 a day, daily max for parking in the garage. So excited to share some of these results with you. You'll be able to see that they reflect returning passenger base after COVID, and that's reflected in the results. And I think in particular rental car usage. But with that introduction, I think I'll turn it over to Greg and have him kind of walk you through what we found out. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Board. Again, thank you, Sean, for allowing us the opportunity to present today on this summer transportation study of 2022. One of the key things we looked at was identifying the proper dates to conduct this survey. And so we worked with Sean and the team to look at TSA throughput numbers from the previous holiday, which was Memorial Day, and that's what made us identify the 29th and 30th as viable days to conduct the survey. We wanted to make sure we got a good mix of business travelers and also leisure travelers with respect leading up to the 4th of July holiday. So we think we were able to capture a pretty broad audience, but at the same time, a large enough audience to come up with some assumptions that we'll go over today. If you look at page 3 of the study, we did end up with less enplanements over this period compared to last summer. A lot of this is a byproduct of just the airline industry right now. We're looking at it from the standpoint of schedules are not what they were last summer. So despite the fact that we have less enplanements during this 2-day period, we were still able to capture 3% more respondents if you look at the far column at 39%. And so we were able to talk to more folks that came to the terminal building compared to last summer, despite the fact that employments were not the same as they were last summer due to aircraft availability, staffing challenges, and things of that nature. So moving on to the next slide, the first question which we did ask was, how did you arrive at the airport today? Obviously, this is a parking survey, so we want to know what their mode of transportation is to the airport. And the biggest change that Brad touched on was the rental-car increase. And obviously last summer, there were some challenges with rental-car inventory. They were still trying to recover from the pandemic, and they didn't have the availability despite the fact that they had the demand. And so you see a substantial increase from 11% compared to last summer to the 26%, which was captured this summer. One of the things we also did was we positioned the 4 team members that we had in the terminal strategically. That way we would capture, again, a broad array of different responses. We had someone near the rent-a-car accounting, or had someone at the ticket counter. We also had someone in the queuing areas up by checkpoint. And so that way we could reach the entire audience that we were trying to talk to. You'll see a slight decrease in the amount of individuals that parked this summer. But if you look at 2019, it's not as dramatic as last summer, once again. And so obviously you guys rolled out dynamic pricing the latter part of last year. So that product is in its early stages, if you will. There are some marketing efforts that we'd like to talk about at some future meetings that are coming up, which to get the word out more about the dynamic pricing and yield management system that you have with respect to parking. So we look forward to that. And that's going to increase and assist with that number. But the reason that number is slightly less plays a lot to do with the rent-a-car increase as well. More individuals are renting cars, and that still bodes well for the airport from a revenue standpoint. Moving down, we always look at how many TNCs or how many local against non-local are using TNCs, if you will. And overall, TNC use dropped by 1%, but it also dropped from the standpoint of how many local folks are using TNCs, if you will. More of your local passengers are being dropped off this time around. And so TNC use as a whole is dramatically decreasing. And again, we think that's a product of just gas prices. And then just the fact that people want to travel alone as much as possible. So that really positions parking and, drop-off to continue to increase over the next couple studies. We always try to evaluate where do you live, reside, if you will, to try to assist and know what your base is from a standpoint of passengers. This is a good question because it also supports any type of air service studies and conversations you may have with airlines. So it's always a good question to ask and to know where your passenger base is based out of. And so to no surprise, Minnesota and North Dakota is obviously leading the way. But we also had an increase with respect to Texas. And that correlation for Texas really, goes back to the business travel. Every time we asked this question, a lot of the individuals that responded from Texas was also on business travel. So there is a correlation between industry in Texas and industry in Fargo, North Dakota for sure. Moving along to the next slide, again, we have it broken up by state so you can see which states were added to the list, new to the list. I italicized the states that were not there previously, and that's Nebraska, New Mexico, and New York. So those were new additions to the state. Louisiana's on the list, which is where I'm based out of. So I just thought I would share that with you as a note. We made the list with 8 this time around, so that was an increase from last time as well. Looking at your international travel, that's what is also surprising as well. This was a dramatic increase compared to last summer. There's definitely some new countries on here as well. And so this obviously is another thing that helps with looking at air service from the standpoint of international destinations. Just knowing even though you're O&D, if you will, there's still opportunities to look at this and understand where some international options may be with respect to travel in and out of Fargo. What is the primary purpose of your trip, business or leisure? Again, we always want to know why a person is traveling. Again, despite the fact that we had 965 responses compared to 1,026 last summer, Again, we captured a larger percentage of that 965. And of that 965, 36% was business travel and 64% was leisure travel. So leisure is taking a slight dip, particularly given the fact that this was a holiday weekend, but your business travel, and that's the good news, is making a strong comeback as well. So you went from 26% last summer to 36%, and that was the biggest question really coming out of the pandemic by all the pundits and all the experts in the industry was, will business travel, resume at the rate it was prior to the pandemic? So that is always a good sign, and it seems like your leisure travel is dropping slightly, but it is sustainable in the sense of it's still present and prevalent. So that's a good mix there. Then we broke it down from the business traveler's mode of transportation just to kind of see of the business and leisure travel, how they're coming to the airport individually, if you will. And it's no surprise business travelers supporting the rent-a-car return, a mode of travel, the highest at 59%. And that's up by about 27% compared to last summer. So that's a significant increase. Not many are parking a car, which is no surprise to anyone. But if you go down to leisure travel, 35% of your leisure travelers are parking a car, and only 7% are renting a car. So that just speaks to the type of travel that it is, and that's going to be sustainable as well. Again, as we continue to market dynamic pricing and yield management over the next several months, we do suspect that parked car will increase. And last but not least, would you be willing to pay $20 per day to park in a parking garage? We had a range in mind with this question, and it was $20 to $24, and the range was stemming from what it would take in order for a parking garage to cash flow. And so we decided to break the question up to make sure we got a really accurate response and land on a single figure. And so based off the summer months, we said, let's start with $20, and then in the winter survey, we would maybe go on the high end of the $24, being that the winter is the most challenging, I guess, month, if you will, with respects to, and then probably the most desirable to park in a parking garage. So we would use a higher rate in the winter months. And so based off the $20 price point, we had approximately 16% respondents say yes, they would utilize the garage at that rate. So not very high. We weren't too surprised by that. Most of the folks that did say they would use the garage, they also put the caveat on it that they would use it, but they definitely would use it in the winter months. And so again, that was no surprise to us, but mainly they feel like if the weather is pleasing and cooperative, they more than likely wouldn't really want to use a parking garage. Overall, that's the results of the survey. Again, we definitely look to leverage as much as possible from the standpoint of not just from the parking standpoint, but also from the standpoint of putting together a tool that you could utilize for any conversations you have from an air service standpoint, but also just from a planning and development standpoint. So we'll be happy to entertain any questions you have related to the survey at this point.
And I'll just add too, real quick, Craig, that when we do this survey, and we do note this in the study, and I think you all are aware, but we typically just ask one person of a traveling party. A lot of folks, certainly the leisure travelers, or family traveling with their family, or multiple members of the party. So we do just interview or survey, one person when there's more than one person traveling in a group together. That's just to help us not overstate the data. And I think it's important too, just to again touch on the fact that I think as travel returns, COVID subsides, and business travel travelers begin to return, and you see the TNC usage dropping a little bit. It's pretty much a similar story around the country at most airports. We're seeing more parkers per plane passenger. And I think that's really a result of people just being much more comfortable driving their own vehicle and not getting into a stranger's vehicle, a cab, or an Uber, if you will, or even having their family members drop them off. With that return in business travel, and now with a new parking access and revenue control system that has some enhanced features and functionality to it, we're looking forward to getting into some discussions with Sean and the airport about developing a corporate partner program as well. This is an effort where we would go out among the community and really try to promote the parking options to the various businesses and try to get them to encourage their customers to park on site, potentially through the use of some type of discount, and steer them away from obviously getting dropped off or using an Uber or even a rental car and parking on site for that kind of enhanced revenue generation and loyalty efforts as well. So with that, feel free to ask any questions you might have, and obviously you all know how to reach out to us after the fact as well. You're welcome to give us a call or shoot us an email at any time. We plan to do the next survey sometime this fall or winter. We typically do it in the first couple of weeks of December.
Good. Thank you. Any questions from the board for the gentleman that we're presenting? None? Thank you. Appreciate the efforts and time.
I had one quick question. When we do the next survey, could we do a staggered, like, would you pay $20? Would you pay $25? Instead of just asking $20? Just to get
we can certainly talk about that. The challenge for us is obviously, we're there quite early. We still have quite a few folks who, just decline the survey outright or think that we're trying to sell them a credit card. So we want to be sensitive to the passenger's time. We're also trying to capture, the response typically in between the time they check in at the ticketing counter and on their walk to security as they're going up the escalator. So, sometimes hard to, draw out or at least even ask kind of multiple choice type questions. People are less likely to stick around for the whole survey or answer all our questions when it gets long. So we just try to be as brief as possible. But certainly, we can look at options and see what we can do with regard to that particular question.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else, Sean?
No problem.
All right. Appreciate it. Let's move on to number 9. Receive construction administration contract from Mead and Hunt.
This is the next step in the process now that the project has been awarded and actually started now with the installation of the security systems. So Mead and Hunt will do the construction administration for a fee not to exceed $42,000.
Can I get a motion to accept the...
So the existing security system that we already upgraded?
No, that's the checkpoint. This is the proximity card system that's all over the airport, from the South GA, Cargo, North GA, everything in the terminal building where a Prox card works to open up and secure entrance and exit.
I so move.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? None? Roll call.
Hosgert?
Aye.
Heckman?
Aye.
Engen?
Aye. Move on to number 10, continued discussion regarding CM at risk versus design build.
So this is just a follow-up to our previous conversation to keep this whole process moving. Mitch Walker is here from Mead and Hunt. Brandon Halverson is online from Mead and Hunt as well. I handed out a little handout again, kind of on a review of what CMAR is, and I guess the time frame that we're looking at is that based on your action today, if you're ready to move forward to decide on how you want to move forward, whether it's design, bid, build, or if you want to do the CMAR process, it'd be very helpful the earlier we know that in order to get the project underway in conjunction with the completion of the terminal area study. And Mitch is here to answer any questions along with Brandon if you're ready to make that decision today.
I guess this is Rick. So the CM at risk, our point of contact then just becomes the CM. We do not deal with those subs or any of the contractors, correct? The flow goes right to the CM. Interaction is with the CM. And the CM helps us deal with the public to some extent too, correct?
I'm going to come up here.
Go ahead, come on.
I think at our last presentation we kind of had an org chart, and we can certainly get that out to everyone again. But certainly the contract is actually from the airport to then the construction manager. So yes, it's they are your singular point of contact when you go through the process of bringing on board a construction manager at risk. And go through that selection process, much like you would with a design or engineering firm. You look at their qualifications. You want to have somebody that is a good, strong project manager, because that needs to be your singular point of contact. And then they disseminate the information down to the subcontractors as well. So yes, that's how that approach works.
Right. Terry, can I ask you a question? Can you come up here too? So in your experience in the last few projects you've done, not just with the airport but with other clients, has the CM at risk worked with the conditions we have with respect to product materials, the tight timelines and or lack of ability to get product and materials?
Yeah, actually it's a real benefit from the standpoint of not only that, but also estimating. To hire out a consultant that just does estimating. It's not a contractor. It's usually not the greatest way to go. And this way, you have a contractor who's involved with buying material and other things that can give you more accurate pricing, can give you more accurate lead time expectations. Because they're doing it on other projects throughout their company. So I would say, the issue really that you have here is the idea that you have this funding window, and it's a very large project, and we're seeing more and more and more and more. In fact, that started, a while back. Now it's almost the standard. With really large projects to go to a CM at risk, because one, it starts the project sooner, so you're not taking some complete time to design, so you're starting construction while you're still doing some design, and so you can get it in the ground faster, which would help you with your funding issue, and also you get a little more accurate. I should say not a little more, a lot more accurate estimating, and then just a collaboration between the contractor and architect to determine things that could impact cost and design quality during the process. So
the builder takes ownership a little better, or is
they're part of the team. Then they're not somebody that is low bid and is looking to get us for change orders and stuff. They're really kind of on the team from that perspective, and of course they're managing it a lot differently because there's just a lot more involved in it, and especially because you're bidding in phases, and so you have just I think a little more well-rounded communication and relationship with that contractor.
So is there any concerns with quality control when you do a CMAR versus design bid build?
Actually, no, probably a better chance of giving better quality. So that would be the thing that, at least I'm not sure with the FAA, and she'd have to tell me that, I guess. But, we're seeing where when we're doing that or we're negotiating with a contractor, which is very much the same in the private sector, is, we're looking at qualified people to bid it, not anybody to bid it. And so that's another thing where you get to control that a little bit. control on, And so you know, when you've got somebody who's got a relationship with you, they're going to try to do a better job for you. They're not going to, you know, you're probably not going to have as many issues with quality and stuff.
So what about liens? So if there's a dispute between the subcontractor and the CM, they have a contractual relationship. Is there any obligation on behalf of the airport authority if there's a pay dispute or something between the subcontractor and the CM? Can it fall back to the airport?
That is an insulation of the airport, is having the construction manager. So I mean, they're first. I mean, in the contract it stipulates that is the process by which you go up the chain, is first and foremost from the sub to the construction manager. And in fact, we've been on projects where, you know, the discussion starts to happen, and we just say, you know, we're not involved in this. You know, this is not our deal, really. So you do get a little bit more insulation from general contractor to subs because they have been brought in on the team as well. Really, I mean, you know, the construction manager is the project manager for that construction arm of the work, and then the rest of those subs have been basically bid out under that construction manager. So yeah, any of those sort of lien disputes go straight to the construction manager first and foremost.
Good. Questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, do we have any regional or local examples of projects completed?
Oh yeah, NDSU has been doing it recently. Boy, I could find some examples of it, but yeah.
And have they developed any metrics in kind of comparing the two? Number of change orders, budgets. I mean, any studies at all? I know, to embark on these. It seems like an interesting idea of where we headed. I just don't know.
We haven't really analyzed from our projects from an aviation standpoint, going from design, bid, build to CMAR. If there were any sort of reductions and changes, when it works well, it really seems like that is the case. You have a good partner. You have, you have your construction manager who like. The idea is that there should be no surprises. You know, the construction manager is always then communicating with the airport and then offering solutions throughout the design for constructability purposes, for phasing. I mean, you know, this airport needs to be operational throughout construction, so having that aspect of the construction at design is super beneficial. And then throughout construction. So yes, we have seen it run more smoothly to have that team member on. You won't eliminate change orders. There are unforeseen conditions that always arise in projects of this scale, but it's sort of brought up in a owner, architect, contractor meeting weekly, and the communication seems to be there.
And maybe but
go ahead.
Dispute resolution is it contractual in there?
I imagine so.
What are we proposing? Is it arbitration? Is it what?
It would be what you want it to be. Yeah, you could do litigation. You could do arbitration.
How about we just get?
That's up to you.
Yeah, that really is.
Or no dispute.
I will say. Just as you had asked about trending, and I can at least tell you that I know the state of North Dakota does multiple prime contracting, which can work in clean new construction projects. A lot of states throughout the U.S., state entities were doing that multiple prime for a while, but have moved away from it just from the complexity and the pressure it puts on the owner to manage. It just wound up leaning or reverting back to more overhead costs on the owner's behalf. to try and get a lead contractor to manage it. So it all ended up being a lot of semantics. So a lot of state departments have moved back to single prime. So addressing that with the CMAR at risk, you get back to essentially having one entity that that is responsible for this project. And as Mitch said, in a multi-phase construction, that's where it becomes most beneficial because they are in early enough to just kind of ferret out some of the potential challenges earlier and try and stay ahead of those. So I think that's why a lot of universities, state entities, local municipalities are leaning more towards the CMAR option.
I think the fact that this is public facing, I mean, this is going to be a very public process, and having a focal point that is not Sean or not management or staff at the airport is important. It shouldn't be their job to deal with every nuance. We should have a manager in between that process and the board as well. It's a dynamic process because, as they said, this isn't just new construction. This is an ongoing living thing that's being added on to, and I would feel much more comfortable with the management at risk process rather than bid it and build it and not knowing, the low bidder beware, I think. I hate to say it that way, but it can be a low bidder beware. So I would entertain a motion for the CM at risk.
Mr. Chairman, I know we have 2 members absent. Do we want to wait till they can weigh in on this? Or?
I don't. This is important, and I want to move forward. We need to move forward with this. They were aware, and they get the agendas. If they had concerns, I would hope they would voice those or bring them back to Sean and or bring them back to the chair or the vice chair if they had concerns.
And one last, so FAA is comfortable, they're not going to delay on this. They've approved other construction manager of risk.
This is something that we're seeing more and more frequently. It is we would help fill out you do a project delivery method form, basically a questionnaire with your program manager at the FAA, and you just answer a lot of questions about, what is going to be your approach and process.
And if they don't approve that, then we'd have to go to
design bid build.
Then it would revert to a design bid build.
Yeah,
and we would have spent just how much money
well, if you do approve the CMAR, we would engage a consultant for probably $20,000-$30,000 that would manage the solicitation of the construction management firms. It would be probably that amount of money. I wouldn't see it going over $30,000. I don't know what your expectation
well,
is.
You can, if you end up voting on this today, you could start that process of engaging with your program manager right now. I mean, you can, it would be great to have that discussion with your onboarded representatives, so the people that you bring in. But I was just on a project where we submitted our CMAR application form. The owner did it. It's a single page, so it's not like a report that you need to turn and walk them through. And then, that was approved, and then they just brought on board that subcontractor to help with that process.
So Williston Airport was a CMAR, correct?
Yes.
So the Bismarck office does have some experience, but they're co-managed between Bismarck and Minneapolis. Minneapolis office has a lot of experience with CMAR, with Minneapolis Airport and some others that do that process. So,
and just for clarity, when we go down this particular route, it's the construction manager is soliciting the bids. They do not have to take low bid. They do not it's invited bids only, or is it open bids to anybody? We're going to have local contractors.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you would still have to follow state guidelines. If to make it open bid, and that would be to the benefit of the airport to keep it open bid. I think in this climate that we're in, it's most important that we get out there and encourage bidders, bid participation, and we can qualify them. And certainly to what you had said, construction managers, they have their finger on the pulse for reputable subcontractors and suppliers. So you also have that kind of guide, or I guess protection, that if they, if a subcontractor comes in and that is notoriously, and bids on it, that is notoriously can't finish a project on time or has had trouble with bonding, we can again stay ahead of that. The construction manager can advise to disqualify it. But in the end, if you the airport has a recommendation, they will go with that.
So just to clarify Mr. Cosgrif's point, there will be a public solicitation by the construction manager, correct?
Absolutely.
All right.
Correct.
And
yep.
You can pre-qualify, and we have seen that in some instances, but as much as you can keep it open would be a benefit. But construction managers are able to go through what would be pre-bid meetings with all, you would advertise the construction, you would advertise for tier one or sort of main subcontractors to come in and bid on that and ask questions.
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
the concern is just perception, is that low bid may not be selected, and with the airport will not be able to enter into that decision. So the subcontractor,
you would determine that. They would, the CM would ask you. If they said we have X contractor and Y contractor, and we don't think X contractor can do the work, and we think Y contractor can, you would have input on that. If you said no, absolutely, this low bid, that's what we're going to take, then that's what they would do.
I didn't think we could get it that deep into it. Now we would start to put at risk the contractor.
Most boards wouldn't do that, but I mean, that's your choice. It's like anything. The board is still in control of what's going on. I think the issue is how many brand new airports do you see these days? Not a lot. And so I think the FAA finally gave up on the design bid build deal, because these are so complicated. They have to keep operating. They have to have people managing them. Back in the day, we did a really large addition to the Memorial Unit. We didn't even know what CM at risk at that time was, and I had to have a staff member that was literally there for 3.5 years help managing the project, and they paid me to do that. So, that's what's happening in these kind of with facilities this complex, with airlines and all the safety issues. I think they just come up that you need somebody that has got more responsibility to keep this project going. And honestly, I don't know what the size and complexity of the project. You could get it done within the time frame that the funding is right now.
Terry's right. To how granular you want to get as part of the bid process for bid qualifications or input. Ultimately, you do have the say in it, and the board does. If you want to speak out to a particular number, that would come in on a bid, but construction manager will advise what direction to go, and you would just provide them the green light, or you wanted to have a discussion on a particular bid.
It gives you more flexibility, but honestly, I mean, I've been on a handful of CMAR projects that were very large, and the low, we would qualify them with criteria set forth by the board, and the low was always selected. It would be probably an anomaly if not. You always look for the lowest qualified bidder. Is basically what you would be looking for.
I think for the benefit of the board, one thing that concerns me is it is not his job. This creates an opportunity for a person that just does that, and it does remove it, and not insulate, not that it's necessary to insulate, but it does insulate the board and the executive director and his staff from the process. This is so big, and again, there's so many eyes that are going to be on it. I think that is important. They have a job to do, and it's not building the project, it is running the airport, and that keeps a nice clean line between them.
What is the process of selecting the construction manager? And is it just one person, or is it a team?
So what we have done, again, just looking at precedent projects of similar size, we would consult with, as Sean had mentioned, a firm that would complete the RFP, the proposal documents for all regional CMARs, construction managers. That would be advertised, and then so they would set up the RFP. You would receive proposals. You could then potentially interview all or selected contractors based on what the state allows. But we've interviewed all in some instances. We've interviewed the top 3 in other instances through discussions with the board, and then a selection committee was always put together, and then that committee would vote in favor of a particular CMAR. So
this CMAR would also come in with, they would ask them to bring in who's going to be their boots on the ground, who's going to be their main guy, the superintendent in the field. And there's a construction manager, or several construction managers that are managing other things. But then so you're going to have a team of people from that CMAR company that's going to come in, and these are going to be the faces you're going to see. So that it's not. They might be a couple higher ups in a firm that you're not going to see very often to help schmooze in terms of what they've done in the past and all those kind of things. But that's what the RFQ is going to ask for. Or RFP is going to ask for is things like who's going to be doing it. So bring in so you can see somebody go like, I just don't think I can get along with him, or that's just the way it is. And part of it is a meet and greet to see if you feel good about it. So
you also take into account the design at a certain point, and we would work with the airport on this. But what we have done is use the schematic design documents. Once you are through a certain percentage of the design, then you issue those along with your request for calls or request for proposals. And those firms come in, they look at that, and they say, here's what we think your initial phasing should be. Here's an issue that we see here. Here could be a problem. They want to share with you their knowledge base, and they will come in with, typically it would be your PMs who would be your day-to-day contact, your site soup who would come in during construction, and then estimators, of course, because that's ultimately very important in the pre-construction process as well.
Darren and I have met with 3 different firms that have reached out to us over the past couple of years, and there's Mortensen, McGow, that's here in Fargo, Kraus Anderson, which does a lot of the NDSU work, Minneapolis airport work. So, they're out there, they're aware of it, they know that it's kind of a new thing in airports to pursue, and they want to be engaged. So there's at least 3 that come to mind. There's probably others, but in the region, those are the 3 most common that I'm aware of.
To your question on the evaluation criteria to the North Dakota Century Code, has matrix as you evaluate per their proposals, and then interviewing the construction managers, and that's when you would ask the real pinch points of your project, what you're really concerned about. You ask them during the interview, so it gives you more of an interactive, not just as you said, just a low. It's not necessarily just a low number. It's evaluating them on the capability of doing this complex project, this size project, this phase project, airports. I mean, there's, you have this base criteria that the Century Code asks for, but you can also add your criteria to it as well. But that's what I've seen.
And as Terry, mentioned, the schedule is something that is always front of mind, and the CMAR process does allow for an easier path to get early bid packages out. If it's structural earlier, they'll make those recommendations. In fact, what we'd seen is very long leads on a lot of electrical gear, switch gears, paralleling gears, generators. So we already have on a couple of our other projects, our CMARs were saying, you need to order this now. We need to get a package put together to get out and get these long lead items hit. So again, allows a little bit more flexibility for time and schedule flexibility.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move to approve moving ahead with the construction management at risk to develop the RFP and start that process.
I second.
We have a motion second. Any discussion? None? Roll call.
Cosgrove?
Aye.
Heckman?
Aye.
Ingen?
Aye. I will say that considering this will be in excess of $100 million, and it's the airport has to continue to run, this is important. I think this will help that process along and alleviate the airport administration and staff from having to be so engaged with it that middleman is there.
So one more point. So the next step for us will be to develop an RFQ for architectural services. I'll work with Mead and Hunt to put that forth and hopefully have that approved at our next board meeting or maybe even before. We have to advertise for 21 days minimum. We'll get the RFQs because the architect needs to be on board, and then we go through the process of the consultant that will help us put the RFP together for construction managers. And that process is going to take a while, but I think we should be able to complete that process no later than October 1st, maybe earlier.
You mean we don't get Terry for free?
Thank you for your experience and knowledge and sharing.
Yeah, thanks for doing this.
Your recommendation.
All right, moving on to number 11, receive change order number 1 for Sun Electric.
All right, so I'm going to have Terry come back and help to explain this. When we originally bid the security checkpoint project, Sun Electric had a bid of $93,000, and then conversations took place with Terry and his staff from Leidos, which is the government contractor. They agreed to come in and pay X. Well, then after conversations took place, they agreed to pay a different X. So,
right.
So we're kind of change ordering back in some stuff that was originally awarded.
So it is, to be honest with you, it's still a win-win for the airport. During this process, we basically went up and field measured the space, even though we designed it. We wanted to get exact dimensions because we knew it was going to be tight. And we designed it to do what we did. They gave us a layout then of their equipment after we gave them a space to put it in. We wrestled with that a little bit in terms of exploring things that had maybe some conduits or ductworks in it that we weren't for sure if that was what it was, and it showed it on the drawing. Some of it, things get changed in the field anyway. So we went back and forth on that, and never once did they ever say they were paying for anything. All they were doing, and we were communicating with our electrical contract, our engineer was communicating with them regularly, trying to, because there was a lot of questions and they wanted a brand new cabling, and of course they came to the site quite a while before. This is quite a long process, and so they came to the site. In between them coming to the site and us starting this process to actually put it on paper, we did a air and quality improvement project here, okay? And that happened to take up pretty much all the electrical breakers in the breaker box or in the switchgear box. And they didn't see that. That was before, they were here before that all happened. They thought we could patch into this other panel. So these guys are engineers. They know, they know what they're doing. And ended up that, they didn't know that this had happened. And so what we had to do was actually temporary wire it into the panel, then put in a new panel, and then rewire it into the panel because we didn't have enough in the existing panel because of the air quality thing that we did. But then all of a sudden we bid it, and it was basically $93,000, I think, for electrical. So we had 3 lines, and they came back and they said, well, you already bid it? And I went, yeah. And they said, well, we pay for the 2 lines because that's our responsibility. We'll pay for the electrical for the 2 lines, just the electrical. And so we went, okay. And of course the contractor's going like, I said, well, split it up as best as you can. That makes sense. And of course it was $93,000. So they just went, how about if you pay $62,000? And they kind of agreed to that. And then they came out and they said, well, we didn't have an extra panel, and we didn't do this, and we didn't do that, and we want you to break this out, we want you to break that out. So it got to be a lot of work for our contractor to split everything out for them. But in the big picture of things, they still paid, what would they end up paying again? $40,000 that we never thought we were going to get paid. So we were really a net $40,000 ahead in the game. It's just nobody ever knew through this whole process that they were paying for anything. All we determined, they were design professionals helping us say, this is what our gear needs, this is when it's going to come, these are the locations it's got to be, and they wanted they wanted fresh stuff. They wanted brand new cabling. They didn't want any old cabling and stuff like that. So we had to do all that. So yeah, but that's
so in a nutshell, it should have been $90-some grand realistically.
Exactly.
Our out of pocket was still way less than that.
Much
because
less,
they took up the slack. Okay.
Yeah, correct.
Good.
So it's a win-win. It's just confusing and kind of complicated from that perspective.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
it was approximately $100,000 total contract for the $20,000 change order.
A little bit more than that. We just paid the $147,000 to the contractor plus the electrical, and then I think we still owe another $24,000 or so to the contractor yet. So
Pretty confusing.
yeah,
It is. It's really messy from the standpoint of where they had to go to get things, and so we had, not only did we have some legitimate changes, but also what happened, and we met with the contractor, and Sun Electric's a great contractor, and they said, this is really costing us a lot of money to go through and do all this, that they want us to prove this and that. And so we reimbursed them for that. That's part of it. Because it really wasn't fair to them. They didn't have any idea. And all of a sudden now they had to go through this process and do all this paperwork and stuff for this company and refigure things. And, so it was a lot of work for them that we ended up doing. And again, we're still net way ahead of what we did originally.
Mr. Chairman, Terry, would you say that Lidos caused the additional expenses?
Well, yeah. Yes, they really. In some respects, yeah. We thought, they said, well, we'll pay for the 2 lines, and we're going like, okay, great. Well, our contractor thought that heck, it's easily divided by 3, so why don't we just do that way? Because essentially in the big picture, that's probably what it was. And then that's when they came out and they started looking at things and were like, well, so why do you have this panel here? You didn't have a panel in ours. Well, sorry, we did some work in between the last time you were here, So those are the kind of things that happened. And yes, they did kind of cause that, but at the same token, then they paid for a bunch of it. So, again, like I said, we're still net ahead. It's just, I've never run into anything like this before. So we've never done anything on the airport that somebody has. We've done a lot of things that we get input on certain pieces of equipment and all those kind of things, but never did we ever think they were paying for anything other than they were showing us what they needed for their equipment and what kind of connections they needed and where they needed to go. But at no time was it ever communicated, not only to the airport or us or my engineer, that they were paying for it.
So, to be clear, Litos installs the new...
They installed did they install the equipment? Yeah.
Yes. They install the new equipment, but nowhere in it is that they were paying for some retrofit. We just assumed they were...
we just assumed we were paying for it, and they were coming in with this new equipment. They're going like, no, we'll pay for the new electrical, because it's special for this new equipment. Okay. Well, we didn't know that.
They didn't even tell Bismarck TSA staff that was working with us. It was like, well, where'd this come from?
Yeah. I mean, we had no...
Surprise to all of us.
So Litos did... I mean, it's great that they did pay for something, but their communication with the TSA was minimal, if non-existent, about their requirements.
It was really a hit and miss thing. We'd get stuff and then we'd wait for months to find things, and we'd answer their questions right away and then wait months for them to come back.
Okay.
Can I get a motion to approve?
I'm so moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Motion second. Discussion? None. Roll call.
Cosgrove? Aye. Heckman?
Aye.
Engen?
Aye. Move on to number 12. Receive bids for front-end loader.
So our airfield staff started talking about replacing our largest John Deere loader a couple years ago, and decided now that would be a good time to do that. We got 3 proposals between Butler, Titan, and John Deere, and they're recommending our staff is the John Deere bid, due in part to, of course you can see the Butler costs are significantly high. $569,500 for a similar size loader, and $671,000 for another similar size loader. The John Deere one that they're proposing is very, very similar to what we have right now. The differences between the two, and these are all Sourcewell bids, so they're on part of that state consortium. Titan also included a Minnesota state contract, which is a little bit different. But the differences between the two, and Titan can't provide a loader that is very similar to what we have right now. The biggest differences are the horsepower. The John Deere is 419 horse. What Case is proposing for their similar loader is 345 horse. That's a big difference when they're pushing the heavy wet snow out on the ramp. The other factor is John Deere weighs over 75,000 pounds. Case is about 61,650. That's another big factor. The operators in freezing rain or snow like heated mirrors. Case doesn't have heated mirrors. John Deere has a 3-function hydraulic control system that Case doesn't support, but they could add for a cost to be determined. They thought it could be under $5,000 in that sense. So the other part of it is that Case comes with a 3-year, 3,000-hour warranty. John Deere comes with an 84-month, 4,000-hour warranty. So our staff is recommending the John Deere for $546,946.20. That doesn't include the cost of radios, which is about $2,000 installed, the tower radio and then our internal communication radio.
What will we do with the loader that they're using now?
Okay, glad you asked that. So if we order the John Deere or the Butler Caterpillar today, delivery is by this time next year. It's a 12-month lead. Titan can have the loader here in February 2023. So what will happen is if you decide on the John Deere one, we'll hold that through this winter season, and then once the new John Deere or whichever one that you suggest arrives, once that's accepted and approved, then we will put the existing loader that we have up on auction. So through Steffes, we've had very good luck with selling our equipment through the Steffes online auction.
And the current being replaced is again
It's a large John Deere. I forget the model number, but I think it is an 844P. I think that's, yeah. That's
Mr.
what
Chairman, what was the price differential between the two?
between Butler and?
Yeah, you're recommending John Deere over
the Titan one. So let me geez, 546,946 versus 361,500, but it's really not quite an apples to apples because of
the all in.
I'm sorry?
All in on the case.
Right. 361,500. That's on the Minnesota contract. It's 394,750 on the Sourcewell. But then you have the differences in the warranty, the weight, the horsepower, which they like the weight and the horsepower when they're pushing snow. So.
And the heated, those things are serious.
So, as much now, keep in mind, none of these currently meet the Buy American clause. I mean, the case is manufactured right here in Fargo, but when you get the engines, the transmissions, the tires, and everything else, what we have done with our equipment is that we recover the cost of future passenger facility charge application.
And is there any additional training that's required to operate this machinery?
No.
After they get it? Okay.
No.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve the staff recommendation based on the advantages cited.
I second.
Motion and second. Any discussion?
I'd love to be able to get the case here and argue. He won't call me from the plant. I know he will. We manage their foreign trade zone at the plant as well, and I think they do understand the differences, but it's just not quite there yet. So.
Okay. Roll call.
Cosgrove?
Aye.
Ekman?
Aye.
Engen?
Aye. Moving on to number 13, construction and security update.
Jeff, do you want to go first? Come on up.
Sure. Two things for you. If you want to take one of these and pass it around there. First thing in regard to the access control system, I think in that contract proposal there was really simple sketch showing the conduit layout that's on the airfield. They actually started the installation yesterday. They started over by Hangar 19 in the South J and made it roughly to the area of the 3.6 threshold. And then between today and tomorrow, they're going to continue this route, and they'll get up close to the air traffic control tower, and then they'll be done because that's all the conduit that they have on hand. And then it's just kind of a wait-and-see game to when they can start picking up the trenching of the conduit again. So I was just to give you a kind of a magnitude of the project from the airfield infrastructure standpoint. There's roughly 25,000 feet of conduit to plow in and about 48,000 feet of fiber to pull through that conduit. So it's quite extensive. So that's just a quick update on that. The completion date, they want to get all the airfield underground in by the end of this year, pending material availability. And then over the course of the winter or later this fall, they'll start on the interior stuff in the building here. So completion date as of right now is April of 2023. So there's that. And then the other sheet that I sent out is a change order proposal from Border States for the extra parking. This did not get put onto the agenda because I did not receive this until late on Friday afternoon. So the agenda had gone out and I hadn't had time to review it. What you see on the left there is the original bid price of $1.75 million. And then at the request of the Airport Authority, we had looked into adding 160 stalls, making revised plans, and then determining the amount of quantities needed to accomplish it. And Friday I got that proposal back from Border States of $395,545. So what I had done was I had taken the original bid price and compared it to the revised bid price because this project was originally bid on the 17th of March of this year, so quite some time ago. And with the volatility in construction costs right now, I expected some larger increases. So I highlighted some in green there. There were some storm sewer manholes that were needed, and like they had gone up 71 or 72%, 53%. I called out or called around to some different contractors to see if those were actually in line, and they felt that just manhole prices between March and now have gone up like $3,000-$4,000 per manhole. I was quite shocked by that. Another significant cost is the earthwork for topsoil stripping and borrow. Under the original plan, all the topsoil stripping was going to be wasted on site where the parking lot is at, and they could utilize a lot of the existing clay from site to for construction. Basically the site balanced. Now that we've expanded it and added more pavement, we have to haul topsoil off and come up with more borrow somewhere. So what Sean and I had talked about was taking clay out of this area to haul over to the economy lot site, and then use the topsoil stripping from the economy lot site and fill that back in. So the extra quantity, the cost of the extra quantity there was roughly $66,000, and it just is attributed to the hauling costs, the spreading of it, reestablishing the sites, that kind of thing. Again, I had the cost increase between the two. The first one there is about $13 a square, or excuse me, $13 a cubic yard. The second one was about $11 a cubic yard. Just the hauling cost of that half-mile haul is about $8 to $10 a yard. Doesn't include any time for loading, excavator, reestablishing the site. So looked at that. The yellow paint is in high demand right now, in short supply, so that had gone up substantially. Coated cable, that's just costs there, and then the other one was I didn't get a clarification on this one yet, but the light pole fixtures have gone up significantly as well.
So since we didn't get this in time for the agenda, I mean, it's kind of for your information now. I'll put it on the next agenda for official approval from there. They also talked about a time extension.
They did, and I just got an email on it this morning. So they had expressed a desire to request a time extension given that this extra work is added. I had just reached out to Border States. I said, we got to show some progress on the initial bid package, because the completion date is actually the 16th of September. So, and during that phone call, they had Cameron said they intend to get it done by then, but then again this morning they had sent a request for a time extension. So, that's up to the authority. Really, the parking lot isn't needed until winter months too. But
how much of an extension?
That's debatable. I mean, the email didn't request a specific date. One thing to consider is we need to get the parking lot done so Flash Parking can get their equipment installed for the entrance and exit gates. So we got to allow them enough time.
And so, if we gave them an additional month, we'd be safe, do you think? Because they're going to move pretty quickly. It's not like it's a big deal.
I think a month would be
think so,
sufficient.
yeah. So.
Well, I appreciate the explanation on some of the really crazy increases.
When I wanted to compare them, and I was kind of shocked when I started doing a side-by-side comparison, not just the volatility.
Yeah.
Any questions? John?
All right. Thank you.
I think the only other thing Terry had is the checkpoint, and it's 99.9% complete.
Yeah,
or
right. Yeah, pretty almost complete for sure. The exit plaza, They poured footings last week. They started forming walls, foundation walls yesterday. Plan on pouring those walls Wednesday, and then next week they'll backfill, and they've got steel delivered, and they'll start seeing steel being erected next week. So hopefully come along.
Terrific.
For some other stuff, I noticed Brian Johnson is on from PFM. Mr. Engen and Mr. Cosgriff and I met Brian and his team to do a kickoff for this investment process. Brian, do you have anything?
Hey, Sean. No, nothing from my perspective today. Just I got the invite, wanted to join, catch up on everything that's going on at MAA. So nothing specific, as you alluded to. I had the meeting with yourself and Rick and John last week. I think everything should be kind of moving on our end, and excited to work with the authority and get everything going from an investment perspective.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Eric Lynn said he tried to dial in. They had issues, comm issues from his location, so unfortunately he was not able to.
Just a couple of minor things. Jeff had mentioned getting yellow paint. So our airfield, well, when you look at one of the maps, has all the hold lines, center lines, and so forth. We cannot get yellow, red, or white paint for airfields. This is a problem across the country. So when we look at our certification inspectors and keeping our pavement markings in compliance, it's going to be very, very difficult because there's this. We're on the list maybe to get some in October as far as yellow paint. As far as red and white, they have no idea when. We have all kinds of black paint, but.
And what's the temperature requirement to apply it? Because October may be getting late.
It's questionable. Yeah, I think our guys prefer it. I don't know, Dan, do you know? Jeff, is it in the 50s?
It's usually like 50, 60 degrees, temp, and then rising.
Yeah, so it's a dilemma. And airports that have it aren't going to share any. So.
And it's just like every single brand.
Right. Sherwin-Williams won't even put us on their customer list. So they won't add us. So we get all of our paint right now currently through Diamond Vogel. They're a big supplier of paint for all the highway crews and stuff in town. We're just waiting to see. And this all goes back to the Texas freeze. They've never caught up.
Is that where the paint's manufactured?
Correct. Most of it.
Okay.
Let's see, some other minor things. We got the final transfer of cash that was at our Wells Fargo account from the city in mid-July. So Steve Sprague and I have worked out a process now where on a monthly basis the property tax amount that we received will be transmitted to us. They did an ACH transfer or wire. He may just do it by a check just to save the $15 fee. We'll see where that goes. But we are getting that. We have one outlier. A foreign airline, Austrian Airlines, still likes to send us electronic payments for our PFC, and we've tried everything to get their attention to get that changed, but they could still be sending wires to the city for our PFC payment, but we're trying to get that shut off, and I don't know if Steve and his crew figured out how to do that. Outside of that, I don't think I have anything else.
Anything for the good of the order? None? Meeting adjourned.